been a minute. So I'm Zach with my wigs. It's my small business. So we're gonna talk about slabs. You know, I just recently cut down a pretty big tree, and we're gonna talk about it. So in the meantime, I have a stack of, there's like 10 or 12 different slabs here. It's like more of a seasoned cut. So I need to stand these up. I'm gonna stand all these slabs up in this video. I want to stand them up here in like, I don't know, I think it's going to take me like 5 minutes. Stand them all up. I'll ramble and stuff. I'll switch the camera over. We're going to talk about the slabs and the harvest, and then we're going to go next door and we're going to go to the sawmill and the other stacks and stuff like that. So yeah, so it was a pretty interesting day as far as getting started with that big old log. So it all started with, looking at the tree and kind of evaluating the situation and seeing what needed to be done to, harvest the tree. And, yeah, it was a challenge. It was a major challenge. Now that I'm thinking of it, I think I'm gonna pull these directly from here. Because they're all gonna go next door. So I have a spot next door that they're gonna be standing, and they're for sale. So I want them to be accessible. So it doesn't make sense for me to stand up a few slabs and stand them on this wall and then pick them and take them to the next one. So, but I do need to move these slabs. I'll do that later on tonight. So we'll just go ahead and start talking about the big walnut situation. Let's get you all lined up. Let's get you repositioned. All right. So this slab is absolutely massive. Like, it was a challenge to cut this log. So every step of the way, sharpening the chain of the Lucas mill, every single cut, from cutting the tree down to getting the site ready for the Lucas mill to be set up. There were just challenges, every step that we went. But ultimately, accomplished my goals. My goals were to put a 20-foot plus slab on my trailer, and I accomplished that. This slab is 22 feet long, so it's 50 inches wide right here. So 50 inches wide, 47 inches wide over here. And so this is like one of the smaller slabs. The one underneath it, this is 50 inches wide. This one right here, this one's like 52. So, just massive slabs. I can't even pick these slabs up, guys. So a skid steer dropped these in my trailer. It was a pretty fun time. But yeah, so cutting big wood is extremely rewarding, but it's extremely challenging. So we're gonna go through logistics. I had to cut this tree down. I had assistance with my buddy Clayton. Anytime I cut trees down, Clayton's typically going to be with me. I like to do that because it's just safer to cut trees down with somebody else other than just cutting by yourself. So Clayton actually felled this tree, and after he felled it, after it fell on the ground, we had to buck it up, and I decided that we needed to keep it at 23 feet. So it was 23 feet. I brought the Lucas mill as far as I could bring it, and that was like 22 feet. If I would have positioned the Lucas mill differently on this log, I don't think I would have had to cut that foot off of this slab. So it was a 23-foot log, just a massive log. I have some videos, I'll have to post them on YouTube and stuff, but it's really challenging, videoing the process of this, because it takes 3 or 4 times longer to document everything versus just like kind of doing the work. So I just like to kind of do the work, but this slab and tree is kind of burly. So there's like you can only see it right here, like there's a small burrow right here. There's actually more burrow underneath. Let me see if I can move it. I will say this slab is over 1,000 pounds, so it's pretty challenging to move. Let's see if I can move it. Yeah, there we go. But I see bird's eye in there also. I see some bird's eye figure. There's some, just like a burly section of the log. I think I'm gonna cut the top slab. I think I'm gonna cut the top slab like right here, make it like 14 feet. I have another reel at my house, an entire log set. This is only half the log, okay? This was a landowner split, so if you have massive trees in the state and you need them cut, well, guess what? I've been cutting trees for over a decade. I've never came to a tree where I haven't been able to process. So I will say this was probably the most challenging tree I've ever cut in my life. But with the assistance of a few people, we were able to get it done. So being prepared is very important. But as far as the cost breakdown, what did this cost me to achieve my goals? Well, I do have a Lucas mill, and I think it costs like $15,000. So you would need to have that to process this log, or you would need to have a double-ended 880 with a really massive bar. And I've seen people cut really long logs with just chainsaws. The Alaskan mill situation. So it could have been done with that. So my cost on this log was around $500, and that was two days worth of labor. I paid someone for 2 days to help me accomplish my goals. So other than that, I don't have any cost in this wood. I also have my time. That's not accounting for my time. So usually whenever I procure trees, I have little to no money inside of the wood. And the only kind of time, it's usually like time and workloads. You have workloads to achieve your goals, and you need to figure out how you're going to be able to get this tree on the ground safely. And how are you going to be able to get this log on your wood miser? Or if it's not a wood miser log, how are you going to position this log so you can slice it up? Well, it probably took us 2 or 3 hours just prepping the area around this tree, this log, whenever it's on the ground. And it was completely solid. So we're going to take you off the tripod, we're going to walk around, we're going to go to the next room. So this tree was completely solid at the stump, which was fantastic. So you see this right here? That's D grade. That yellow portion of this tree, that's a little bit of D grade. And that is an indication that portion of the tree was dying. Eventually, in maybe 5 years, 10 years, it potentially would be all yellow. So this tree could have been cut out earlier than I actually cut it. But I feel like it's a perfect tree to cut out, considering, you're at 50 inches wide, 47 inches wide at the stump. This slab down here is a little wider, but let's say 50 inches wider, so 22 feet long. That's a massive stick of walnut. So let's go next door. I'm gonna turn these lights on. Anytime I use my sawmill, I get it all nice and ready. So I actually need to delete my post. So or market sold. I sold one of those rounds. I've been selling wood every single day, like multiple times a day, and that's just kind of a typical situation. If you have any logs in the state, I would love to cut your logs. Let's talk about this unit. This unit came up next door. This is my primary unit, okay? It's my primary unit. Sawmill used to live here. Well, trailer used to live in my backyard. It still does, but it's in here right now. This came up for $203. I had to snag it. So sawmills live in here. I have a little stack right here. I'm going to, so this will be my 4th stack that I've made in these units. And this stack is going to touch the ceiling. That's 16 feet tall. So this has been my 4th time I've brought walnut from floor to ceiling. So those are my goals in this unit. It is going to store my sawmill. It's going to store a lot of seasoned wood. These have been cut for 3 or 4 years. So just massive pieces of wood. If you need, that's a fresh cut piece of wood. It's not seasoned. That's been cut for 7 years. This is seasoned. It's not sold. That slab is sold. So that's kind of the business. It cost me around $500 to put this tree on the ground, have a little bit of labor to help me slice it up, and I accomplished my goals. I have like 10 other massive trees that I have to cut. So today I just disassembled some stacks in the backyard so I can put those slabs in there, and sawmill's ready to go. You see that there's a few things that I need with the sawmill. So I typically like to bring straps. You got diesel. If you're going to be in the winter and you're cutting and it's below 32 degrees, you're not going to want to run water on your machine. You're going to have, windshield wiper fluid. I have chains. You got the 8. This is the fluid I like to use with the sawmill. Okay. I put this all over the sawmill. It doesn't have any of it on there right now, but it needs to be done. Okay. Let me tell you something else I did recently, and I'm thankful I did. I'm going to resituate it, and I'll put it back on eventually, but it's been rewelded multiple times, and I had to cut it off. I cut it off on site because the weld broke. So this typically is like right here, okay? Well, I cut it off because it broke, and I just didn't like it. Well, I need to let's see if I can come along this side. I'm going to grind this off right here. I want to grind this off. This will extend my cutting capacity because this will allow my my situation to go out farther. And I like it with it off, because this little blade guide arm safety mechanism, whenever you're in travel mode, this right here is resting on your travel hook, and I'm telling you, it hits this. I just do not like it. So I cut it off, and I can put it back on one day. But if you can see like that, I feel like that's relatively square. This isn't, and this was causing me issues. So whenever I wanted to be at 1.25 inches above the bed, that would hit. I couldn't make my last cut 1.25 inches on the bed, and that's frustrating. And that's because that's been bent multiple times during travel mode. I've cut for like 400 or 500 different people around the state. 300 plus paying customers that I cut their logs for, and then hundreds of people on the halves and stuff. So it's always traveling. So you have to make sure all the mechanisms are ready to go. Every time I cut wood for people, I wash it. Why do you wash it every time? Well, I like to wash it because whenever I cut logs for people, typically those logs are going to be on the ground for a while, and there's bugs all over the logs. Well, I don't want bugs to be on my machine and come into my unit and start crawling around. There's times where I'm like, smashing a bug because it's crawling off of my sawmill. So I like to eliminate that. I like to keep it clean. After I wash it, I like to dry it off. I like to air hose it off, and then it needs to be greased. And there's a few things that I need to do to it currently right now. I'm not planning on using this machine until Monday. It's ready to go. It'll perform on Monday. But yeah, there's a few little things I want to do to get this ready to go. Let's see, is this... So at one point in time, this used to be loose. I tighten this down, and yeah, you know, there's just certain things that happen. I've had this machine welded on multiple times because things break. Anytime you weld on your wood miser, you need to make sure you disconnect your battery cables, because you don't want to fry any of your electronics if someone's gonna, you know, start welding or arcing on your whatever, you know, doing the welding process and clamping and putting a ground to your machine. You wouldn't want any issues to happen to your electrical component. So anytime you weld on your wood miser, make sure you disconnect your wires from your battery. So yeah, I like to have bar fluid for my you know, chainsaws are at the house, but you know, some big old slabs, you know. You want a slab of walnut? It's been cut since 2021. It came from Mustang, Oklahoma. It was in a area that Midwest wrecking was demolishing, and they called me and they told me if I didn't get this log was going to go to the landfill. So I made myself available. I brought my trailer there, and the claw, put it on my trailer, and you know, the rest is history. So anyways, like I said, this will be the 4th time I've made a stack in this unit, in these units. That's going to be from floor to ceiling. So that's what my plan is for back here. I like to have either 5/4 or 2-inch material, 8 foot long, and that's what's going to go into my stack back here. This is just a stack of holding inventory. I'm not necessarily trying to sell any of this wood. I'm not trying to sell any of the wood that's in sticks. I'm trying to sell that book match slab. You know, like, that's what I'm trying to sell. Like, buy that. Buy that set. Buy some cookies, $100. I just sold one today. You know, that's what I like to sell. I also like to sell my services. So if you have any logs in the state, I want to cut your logs. Cut for hundreds of people. I'll come to your property. I'm going to charge you $150 an hour to cut your wood, charge you a setup fee. And after I leave, there's not going to be any logs on your property. You know, that's my job. Slice your logs up. You know, look at this bad boy. It's massive. I can't even move it. But anyway, so yeah, my live videos typically get like 1 or 2 likes. And that's why I don't do live videos anymore, because I'm just getting 1 or 2 likes. Like, what's the issue? Look, I can't even move this with one hand. You see that position? Watch. You know, I can move it. It just, you know, it takes both hands. But they're massive. So my plan for these, I will lift these up with my hands. I'll put some rollers in there. I'll put some wedges under there. I'll increase the elevation between the slabs. I'll put rollers in these slabs, and then I'll be able to position these slabs in my backyard in a perfect stack that I have currently been working on. And there's also a bunch of big old slabs underneath it. So yeah, this will be going in the backyard. And yeah, I will be cutting the first slab. I think I'll be cutting the very top slab. And then, yeah, there'll be 2 22-footers. And then there's a 20-footer underneath that. So I might or might not cut this slab. You know, if you want to buy it right now, you know, that'd be fantastic. Buy the slab. But it's not a $100 slab. So... Bobo, good lucky. But yeah, wood miser is fantastic machine. If you want to buy a wood miser, I'd recommend, the wood miser. It's fantastic. Haven't had any issues with it. I've had a solenoid go out in it. I've had a few things go wrong with it. You need to figure out how you can adjust your machine. So if you're gonna always rely on wood miser to take care of your problems whenever you run into problems, because I promise you, you're gonna run into problems if you get into the sawmill business. There's gonna be something that happens you're gonna have to figure out how to overcome. So you need to figure out how to do that. You need to figure out how to adjust your machine. You need to figure out how to align your machine. You need to figure out how to do the maintenance on your machine. I will say, if something catastrophic happened on this machine, it would be electrical. If something happened to this machine and it was electrical based, I'm not going to be able to fix it. So, I do want to buy another wood miser. I want to buy another wood miser. I want to buy an LT70, wide, command control. Go onto properties and just tell your saw head to do whatever it needs to do. So having multiple sawmills would be great. So yeah, the Lucas mill complements this. Those slabs you saw were not cut on this machine. This machine can cut 32.5 inches wide. That's the max width cut. Just because you can cut 32.5 inches wide doesn't mean you can't put a bigger log on this sawmill than 32 inches. Okay, so there's actually a stop right here. There's a metal stop right here. There's a few inches of cutting capacity in here. So if you have the perfect log and that log barrels out and you can fulfill those few inches of cutting capacity, you can maximize your cut. So it typically it's going to consist of a perfect saw log, a saw log that's like 37 or 38 inches wide, and you're going to be able to get some really nice cuts off that log. You're not going to be able to get 37-inch wide cuts, but you're going to be able to get a bunch of good cuts on that log. So yeah, I love the wood miser. It's fantastic. I increased my cutting capacity because I took my blade guide arm off. Okay, where'd I put it? Yeah, so I took that off right there. I cut it off. I'm glad I did. The weld broke again. It didn't. That's where I cut. It kept breaking over here. I've had it welded before. It wasn't a perfect weld. It was like let's move on and secure. It was just kind of like a little tack weld. So I need to. I would like to have it back on, but like I said, that thing was hanging a little lower than I would like it to, and it was not allowing me to do the things that I wanted it to do. Because if I want to do pattern mode and I want to make sure I have 5/4 boards from the top cut all the way down and the very bottom boards 5/4, that was hitting my bed rails, and I was frustrated. So I cut it off, and I'm gonna bend that over. I'm gonna heat that up. I'm gonna bend that over. I'm probably gonna resituate it. I might use some new metal and redo that a little bit. But my only concern is going to be if my blade chooses to jump off, which it happens. Okay, so let's say I'm inside of a cut and my blade wants to jump off, and the bunching of the blade happens below the bed, and the bunching of the blade is happening at my hydraulic line. So I understand the reasoning behind having this on your wood miser, but I had to take it off because it was just causing me issues, and the weld broke, and I had a grinder on me and I cut it off. So I am concerned with whenever I have a blade on here, I'm concerned if it comes off, and it comes off maybe like right in here, and it tears up some stuff. It comes off right in here and tears up some hydraulic lines. So that would be frustrating, but typically, if it's bunching up, it's gonna bunch up in here or in here, and I rarely see it come out. I've never seen it. I've had a blade come off over 100 times. So that's that. Last thing I'm gonna say, I have like 400 or 500 blades. I'm gonna use them eventually, but that's a lot of blades. If you have a 171 inch, they're back there. They're in stacks. They're in coils. They're not 10 per coil. There's like 30 or 40 in a coil, okay? I coil them up like as if you were to get blades from Wood-Mizer. I don't put them in the bands. I don't loop them back up, but yeah, so I put them, I store them like that. I feel like that's the most efficient way, but there's tons of them, okay? There's a big old stack, and there's stack on there. If you have the desire and you have a blade sharpening situation, and you need some blades, and you have my type of machine, I would love to sell you a bunch of blades. I don't need those. I would love to find a buyer for all those blades, because I use brand new blades every single time. Okay, that's all I use. So that's a seasoned cut. But yeah, so it's 3 inches thick, and it's 22 feet long. So I have some that are going to be closer to 60 and 70 inches wide. They're not going to be as long because they're not in the bottomlands, but they are short, stubby ones. So they're going to fulfill this a little bit more, and all this, and they're going to stop like right here. There's like 10 or so of those. Ranging from 40 to 70 inches wide. So I'm looking forward to, slicing those up. I think I'm going to get a brand new bar for my Lucas mill. I think I'm going to get the 84-inch Oregon bar. The bar currently on my Lucas mill. This is a Wood-Mizer. My Lucas mill is at my house right now, okay? But the bar on the Lucas mill is 84 inches. And I found one on Oregon that's 84 inches, and I think I just need to confirm that there's 2 holes in a few different places and make sure it's going to fit onto my Lucas mill. And if that is the case, I do want to buy it. Unfortunately, it's $800. I have $800. I could pay for it, 100 times if I wanted to. I'm just saying, like, I don't necessarily want to spend $800 on a new bar, okay? So the next time I sell one of these slabs, that's when I buy a new bar for my Lucas mill. So looking forward to that day, because I think a new bar on my Lucas mill will completely change the situation. So if you have a Wood-Mizer and you do want to cut wood for people, shout out to Brunt. They've given me multiple things over the years. They give me free boots and stuff like that. So fantastic company. Yeah, and if you need logs cut, you see that right there. But yeah, if you have a Wood-Mizer, what I was saying is you need to make sure you have extra parts. So I currently don't have them right now. These are brand new. These are brand new rollers. So you should have probably a brand new set of rollers and bearings in the truck, just in case something happens. I've had it happen where one of these stops, okay? One of these stops spinning. Something gums it up, okay? And it stops spinning. And then you have a flat spot on the roller. Well, if I would have went back that day, I probably would have not got the situation free and would have kept, milling the last log, because, it was just putting undue, friction and heat on the blade, heating it up, causing it to, not last as long. But you need to make sure you have the things that are going to go wrong with this machine. You need to have extra rollers. You need to have extra B57 belts. I have an extra belt for every mechanism on this machine. So if it's, you know, the belt that's in here, there's a belt in here, there's a drive belt, there's two belts in here, there's a belt in here, there's belts everywhere. If a belt broke and you're cutting for a customer, what are you going to do? Okay. So before 2026, I'm going to order like maybe like $1,000 worth of parts. So I want to get a couple extra solenoids just in case the solenoid wants to go out again. I want to get, 8 to 10 B57 belts just so I can have a large supply of B57 belts on hand. I have some right now, but I would like to have some more. I'm going to order some more blades. So that's very important to me. I'm going to order as many things as I possibly can before the end of the year because I write everything off. So I've been in business for 17 years. I like to spend money. I want to spend as much money as I possibly can before the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to that. Buying a bunch of things, just stocking up on things. You know, my chainsaws are ready to go. I just got a couple new bars, you know, for the chainsaws. So I'm just looking forward to, you know, cutting a bunch of wood and, you know, getting after it. But yeah, this is the Wood-Mizer LT40 Super, fantastic machine. My first Wood-Mizer was an LT40 wide, but it had a gasoline engine. Well, I found out that some gasoline engines don't last past 1,000 hours. Well, in 2020, when people were freaking out getting the COVID shot and, you know, restricted and staying home, you know, I work every single day. Like I said, I've been working for myself for 17 years. There's no paid time off. I don't get like maternity leave. Oh, I have a child. You know, you get paid to not work and stay home. Like, you know, that doesn't happen with me. You know, you know, I work for a living. That's all I do is work. So, working and providing for my family. So anyways, in 2020, when I had that gasoline engine and noticed that it potentially could go out at 1,000 hours, it had 500 hours on it. I sold it for $30,000. And I purchased this machine. It has a diesel engine. I think diesel engines potentially can last over 10,000 hours. And I just thought it was a more suitable machine for my business. So I sold my last machine and I got this. Before I bought sawmills in 2017, like when I first started processing logs and taking logs to sawmill in 2012, it was a Wood-Mizer, but it was a 1990s model Wood-Mizer. The drive belts and the rollers and, you know, the drive wheels, you could shake them. You knew that the bearings were out. And there was like, you never saw a brand new blade go on those machines. So you take logs to a different sawmill for 4 or 5 years and you incur $20,000 or $30,000 for the sawmill fees. You know, 2017 came around, I decided to buy my first sawmill. But whenever I had the experience cutting and having other people cut my logs, and I was pulling logs and slabs off of their Wood-Mizer, I found that, you know, you'd have inconsistent cuts. You wouldn't know the timing. When are you going to be able to have your logs cut? How much is this going to cost you, you know, to get your logs cut? So there's so many different factors. And then you had to get the logs to the sawmill. So that was, you know, extremely challenging for me because I still don't have a skidster at this time. You know, my next purchase will be a skidster. After that, it'll be land. So, you know, it's kind of one thing at a time. And I don't really like to go into debt. So, you know, I kind of cash purchase those things. You know, I want to buy a skidster in cash. You know, I could right now, but that would make me feel a little uncomfortable if I did that. So the Wood-Mizer is a fantastic machine. I highly recommend you get a Wood-Mizer. I'm not sponsored by Wood-Mizer. I don't understand why not, because, you know, there's tens of millions of views on my Instagram page of different videos of this machine just cutting through wood, you know, thousands and thousands of different videos of the machine just eating wood. So I wish Wood-Mizer would do something for me. You know, they give me a banner and they've given me blades at one point in time, but yeah, Wood-Mizer doesn't do anything for me. The only person that does stuff as far as company wise is gonna be Brunt. Huge shout out to Brunt. They've hooked me up with boots multiple times, and I think they're gonna give me another pair of boots here soon. So look, that's super cool. But yeah, this is the wood. Those were cut with the Lucas mill. You can't cut that with the Wood-Mizer. If I was to cut that with the Wood-Mizer, it would require me to have a different wood miser, the Wood Miser 1000. I know a few people that have cut the saw head to extend the width. So you would make that cut probably right here. Okay, you cut your machine. I have a buddy, so he's no longer alive. I've actually had so many people have died in the past 3 or 4 years. It's crazy. But anyways, James, great guy. But you can cut your machine right here if you wanted to. Cut this machine. You can get a piece of metal, okay, piece of steel that fits that, and you could extend it. I know people that have done it, okay, multiple people, and it allows them to cut a wider, they have a wider throat. I would never cut my wood miser. I think I would have to buy a LT28 with a diesel engine, and then I would potentially cut it. But I don't have any desires to cut a wood miser so I can have a wide capacity situation. That'd put me a little wide on the road, and I'm a little scared. It doesn't make sense for me to cut a machine that has been designed to do the things that it needs to do. But yeah, there are some people that cut their wood miser to extend it so they can cut bigger slabs. Pretty interesting. I don't think I would ever do that. I would never do it to this machine. So yeah, I would love to complement this machine with like a LT70. I think it'd be fantastic. Have the LT70, bring it out at a certain time, bring this out at a certain time whenever I cut for people. But fantastic day. I'm gonna end this video very soon. We're going on 35 minutes. But yeah, this is 22-foot slabs. Light just turned off. These things are awesome. These eco flows, I got like 5 of these things. These battery packs, this will charge. Like whenever I'm in the woods for multiple days and stuff, and you need battery and power, and this thing does the job. So yeah, it took probably there was a cut that probably took 40 minutes just to make one cut. The chain was so dull. But after the first few cuts, we started sharpening the chain on the Lucas mill, and we started, eating through this log, and finally was able to accomplish our goals. So I need to get these slabs off my trailer here in the next 48 hours, and then I'll have a free trailer, and then I'm going to put more massive slabs on it, and then I'm going to put those slabs on top of these slabs in my backyard. And these slabs are currently going to go on top of big slabs also. So just, having a big old stack in the yard. So God bless you guys. Enjoy your day, and keep grinding.